Razi
Mizrahi.
It's very hard to say, and it's just
It's
I'm
alright.
not
We'll
very
just
good
keep
with-
working on it through the
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
time. Don't miss that name. You have to say the whole thing each time.
Yeah, and Elliot Walker,
Walker.
which is
Manage that one.
which is very so because I'm looking at my bits and pieces. When you wanted to be an artist, what triggered? What was the trigger? I mean, what made you want to be an artist?
Well, I don't think I ever thought about it that way. Like, I want to grow up and be an artist. You just do what you do, and then you sort of organically, it happens. But I would also say the thing that triggered the decision was the thought that I might not be able to, and then the challenge had to be overcome.
Why did you think that you would be able to?
Because it's not viable. I mean, I like to not eat cat food and to live a dignified life. And
Would you eat cat food?
if I were a starving artist, then probably I would. But I'm just saying, I think the thought was you can't actually make a life being an artist, so I did other things. I went to law school, and I went to graduate school, and I did lots of other commercially, responsible things, and then I felt like I could also do this at the same time.
Well, that sounds a very sensible way of sort of going about things, really. I mean, with your work, there's a lot of interesting elements to it, and one of them I kind of like suffer myself in a sense, and that's it's not a negative thing to say. It's just that's what happens with all of us. Is that the relationship with our possessions is quite important, and as you say, like the act of ownership. But the interesting thing is that the area of what we discard, and what we discard becomes your art.
Yes.
So can you tell us? I think that's really interesting, because I've got a problem at the moment where I'm being urged to sort of declutter. You know that horrible word when they say declutter. I would rather say decaffeinate. They say declutter. So can you expand on that?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. I think, first of all, we all have the same struggle you're having, which is the desire to have a much more simple existence around us, but also the desire to not lose things that have sentimental value or have memories sort of bound up in them that you don't want. Like, for example, I have a whole bunch of books that belong to my father. I don't want to get rid of them. I'm not going to read them. They have no practical value, but they do have some of his writings in the margins, and that handwriting, I'll never be able to see that handwriting again. So there's just, we want to keep things because they have some sort of connection to us, or we just like looking at them. And yet we also, which I want very much, is to have a life that's very streamlined and just simple and not distracting. So one thing the one premise on which everything I make in art is built is the idea that everything we need already exists. And so anything so you don't have to throw things out. You could actually just reconfigure or reformat something into something that you would use again. For example, you could make, which I'm doing at home, I'm making a bathroom vanity out of some other piece of furniture that I had. And it just, takes some work to think about how you might be able to hold on to your possessions, streamline your life, and also use your creative power to give them a new context.
I mean, part of what you said, because I read the blurb, and he said that, which leads us straight, he said that you feel that, I'm not sure if it's in hotel rooms or in the house, it would probably be like a hotel, that the bathroom is actually the safest place.
Oh, I wrote that?
Yeah. Oh, I got that, yeah.
I don't think any of these bathrooms have locks on the doors.
I know, right? I wonder why they do that. They don't want you to lock yourself in. What does the hotel think they're going to make us do that we'll want to lock ourselves in the bathroom?
It's probably if you have to, if there's an emergency, you have to have sort of quick access.
This is very sensible thinking.
But I mean, did you not say that? Well, it was out there on the internet.
Really?
Yeah, because it was partly to do with your materials, where you find what draws you to like certain things to pick up.
Usually things that are, I mean, they have to just have a sort of history built into them. I wouldn't pick up anything that's plastic. I mean, I also wouldn't pick up something that was, really breakable, like glass. I wouldn't, because it would be I want things that are sturdy and durable, even if...
That sounds like the British.
Even if they're damaged, well, so maybe
that's
why I'm here. Maybe that's how I got into this art fair. So yeah, I like things that have a history to them. I like them to show some scars, some damage, something that tells me there's a whole narrative behind it, that we can only know part of the narrative that came with the piece that we found.
So do you find, as a lot of artists do you find beauty from something that is decaying or broken or old? And how? And when you do you sort of transform these objects completely? Do you clean them up, or are they just as they found them? But you may tweak them to sort of come up in an object. How do you do it?
It depends on the objects, and it depends on what I'm thinking I'm gonna do with it. But I will say I would always clean everything, because you could pick up something off the street. You never know kind of what sort of things it's become attached to. So I clean everything, and then I seal everything so that it's all as weatherproof and hygienic as it could be. And then the way that I would reuse it, I mean, I might take something apart and completely deconstruct it. A lot of times with furniture, you don't really want the furniture. You want the panels or the pieces or the gadgets that are on it. So it would be that. But I'll just say, like, in the last year or 2 years, I found a lot of windows. I think everybody in Brooklyn is maybe redoing their exterior windows. So they're leaving their old windows on the street, and I found probably 10 or 12 of them. And those are a very nice framing device, because you can fix things to the glass, you can take things out of the frame, you can use the frame to kind of hang things behind it, and you can create lines, and I mean, there's just so much variation in what kind of imagery you can create with that. So yeah, I hope that answers.
I've got my highlighter out now because I wanted to ask this.
Yeah. How many highlighters do you own?
One.
Oh, good.
One.
Okay.
I only got this. True. Only got this. I mean, one of the things it said, and hopefully this is right. It said that you do. I'm not sure, like performances, or you put your art in private salons.
Oh, yes,
Is
I
that
have
true?
done that. Yes, I've done that.
And is that like sort of a salon in a sense where people are eating and drinking, and the art is sort of more like a party, but people can buy the art?
Yes. It's precisely like that, and I encourage people to buy everything in every salon that they possibly can afford.
Exactly. I'd like to ask you, so hopefully this is what you said.
Okay, I hope so too.
Hopefully this is what you said.
Maybe it's what Elliot said.
No.
I don't think so.
Maybe his favorite place is the bathroom.
Well, this one, it said that you said, aside from acrobatic sex acts, What can be accomplished to stir the human senses and spark important insight? And the other bit was, I think it was by somebody else, Drunken Vertigo of the Late Modernity, which was by Jack Young. But did you say that?
Oh, right.
That isn't to put you on the spot, because I mean I kind of like it's an interesting.
I think it's part of a larger. I think it's part of a larger. I think it's part of a larger paragraph or statement, sort of talking about context. And I'm going to jump only to the Jack Young one, because that one is most familiar to me.
Okay.
But the vertigo of late modernity is a really complicated idea, and it has to do, Jack Young is a sociologist. He's now passed away, but he's very legendary, and he's from the UK. But the idea that we, for example, what he describes is that technology and our way of daily life has sort of made it such that we come out of the subway, for example, from the underground, and we don't know where we are without looking at our device to tell us, where we are geographically located. And the idea that we can't even center ourselves in space, in geography, on the ground, with gravity helping, we can't even do that because of we have because the device is the thing that tells us which direction to go. I mean, it kind of used to be that you would look up and you follow the sun is going that way, or the sun is going that way. So his point is to sort of stretch our mind to what once was our orientation, and where we are now, where we can't orient ourselves without using a mechanical device that we're looking down at to tell autonomy in the world, because you become dependent on things that, if they failed, if we suddenly had a huge power outage, what would we all do? So anyway, it's not really the answer to that particular question that's relevant. It's just the idea that we are losing a kind of human autonomy in the way that we interact with the world today. And that's what he talks about in late modern vertigo.
Well, that's very true.
And my work, in response to your question then, to sort of circle back, my work is maybe pushing back against that idea. That
it is.
Right, that it's very much about the material. It's very much about the objects and the things, and it's about discovering them, just finding them on the sidewalk. There's a lot of serendipity in what I might be able to create, because unlike most artists, probably Elliot, although I don't know, I don't have the luxury of deciding I'm going to make this piece, so I'll go buy this and I'll get a canvas and I'll do whatever. I have to wait and see what the materials I find, and then try to develop the idea in the context of the things that I happen to come across that somebody discarded.
The heat to melt the glass, and then you can't make something without having a direct idea. Well, it's over 1,000 degrees.
1,000 degrees?
Over 1,000,
so how do you do with that? I mean, you just lose a lot of weight.
You don't tend to lose weight, because all the beer you have to drink to sort of balance it out.
What a fantastic plus side. So, tell us about. We're just going to sort of cross. We're going to cross over
to the other side.
We're going to cross to the other side, but you're still here on this side, so it's okay. Tell us about sort of how you got into your art of stained glass windows, and how you started off, and what you were studying, and what put you on that road.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always wanted to. I didn't always want to be an artist, but I was always practicing art in some form.
Yeah.
But I sort of had to tailor it to my skills, so I'm quite a practical person. Yeah. So the idea of like mixing paints and coming up with something which it starts from nothing was quite hard for me to begin with. So the raw material of the glass sheets and the way they reacted with the light, just it helped me open myself up to the creative process, really.
Yeah, and I mean, are there a lot of people in your field? Because it sounds quite specialist.
It's very niche. It's only really been practiced by individual makers and artists for the last 70 years.
Well, that's like nothing, isn't
It's
it?
nothing. I mean, glass is an industrial material. It's an architectural material. It's not really an art material as yet. You know, it's becoming more in vogue. I work with a lot of artists who give me a sculpture that they want to make, and I help them make it as well as doing my own work. So I sort of prostitute my skills in the material to help other people.
This is one of your pieces.
Yeah. So this is from a series that I've been working on for about 2 years.
What is the series called?
It's just still life.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I tend to move between a lot of different ideas. I don't like the idea that if someone's making a material, they stick to a particular style. So this is just one of many different sort of pieces that I make.
When you brought that in, I wanted to ask about the lime, how you got that. It's not just the color, but the slices.
Yeah, so all of
That's fantastic,
Isn't it?
Yeah, the actual
It's
the
really-
actual pieces are made as whole fruit, and then it's the physical cutting of them. You know, I don't use a blade to do that. It's like a big circular industrial brick cutting
Right,
saw to
right,
actually
right.
get through it. But I like, you know, there's always a lot of action in still life paintings. You know, static action, things being peeled, things flopping over tables. You know, candles and things like that. So that's the
So
sort of thing I'm trying to.
Is that because you use uranium glass?
I have done in a previous body
Yeah,
of work.
because
yeah.
I mean I wasn't entirely sure what that was. So
I'm not at all
I
sure
looked
what
it up,
that is. What is
but
that?
the interesting thing, just before Elliot answers it, is that it was originally for tableware and household goods, and because we're all too young, it was very. And you might know this is true because the stuff was on what the explanation was. It said that during the Cold War, when people froze instead of blowing each other up, from 1940 to the 90s, it said that it was very hard to get uranium glass, and sort of the retro feel of what was being made is now very collectible.
Yeah, people do like collecting Vaseline glass, particularly. It was quite popular in the sort of Victorian. It was more of like a curiosity sort of thing, really. You know, it looks pretty garish. It does look pretty horrible, and what they used to make out of it was pretty grotesque stuff. So I'm sort of, you know, with the body of work that I did, it's inspired by both the contents of the glass itself and what it used to be made into. You know, these little sort of goblin-like vessels.
Well, because one of the things, we are jumping about here, and that's only because we're kind of like pushed for a little bit of time, but we're going to stretch it. I mean, hopefully we won't hurt. So it's going to stretch the time a bit. So it says here, I mean, it said that you are just described as one of the most talented UK glass artists. I mean,
I
are you
agree,
happy?
probably. No, it's
No,
more,
it's good to have a
it's-
compliment, and if it's true, you know, I mean,
I think
embrace
it's
it.
more to do with where the sort of scene is at the minute. You know, there's a wave of people coming through at the moment who, unlike the people they've worked under, aren't making vessels. They aren't making tableware. They're pushing the material into new avenues. You know, and that's what
good.
I'm in that group. You know.
So where do you think it will go? You know, I mean, this advancement.
I mean, the scene in America is way past where we are here. Glass it's a mainstream art medium, really. So I think it'll just continue moving up, you know, from a purely craft-based medium into, you know, other areas, really.
Okay. And part of what was what is said, it said that you have and this might need some explaining because I could it said that you have a fear and distrust of nuclear power, disastrous consequences of the inexorable modernisation, evolution as a species. So what? And how does that relate to your
I think it's
work?
just a morbid fascination with disaster, really. I mean, my first set of still life pieces was based on ceramics that I'd seen in Pompeii, and you know, there's a cup in the British Museum, I think, that was left over from Hiroshima, and one side of it is beautiful painted porcelain, and the other side is covered in this black sort of
Yes.
glass-like material, and glass is linked with nuclear disarmament and nuclear waste being trapped in glass.
Yeah.
So they take the waste from the reactors and they trap it in glass and seal it in lead and bury it, and so there's a link between the material itself and this idea of nuclear disaster.
Well, there's also a connection between the fragility of glass and the fragility of human existence. that
Yeah,
we're really
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah, I mean the furniture pieces that I've been making at the minute, the glass chairs, I like that idea of having this thing which is a functional object,
Is it functional?
It's not
Could
functional.
I sit in it?
No. I had my little brother sit on it for like 5 seconds.
Okay, and we can go from one area to the other, which is nice, which is more like a fun question, because it's interesting to find out different areas of artists' work. But I mean, this could be applied to both of you. Is that, and if you go first, are there any funny or amusing things that happen to you in actual exhibitions, or does that not happen?
I don't really do shows, and if there's an exhibition, I'm usually there at the opening, and I can't remember it the next day. So
It's because they're good
That's
parties.
Yeah.
Well, because they're probably very, very good parties. Well, has anything funny happened to you in a hotel room? That you can
Well, I had a lady in earlier, and because I'm not hanging any work, they've got the hotel's pieces on the walls that she came up to me. She asked me, "Oh, how did you do these? Are these printed or are they like drawn or something?" Which I thought was quite funny when I have my piece right underneath it.
I'd like to say a general thing. So we're sort of getting out of the script, but Vanya's got some pads just over there. So if anybody wants to sort of draw anything while the artists are actually saying anything, or anything comes to mind, then feel free to do so. If you do want to draw, I mean, in a very short, I mean, it probably affects you more, but a very short answer in a sense. I mean, how do you feel that Brexit, I call it Brexit, Brexit will affect the art industry, and would it affect you? And it might affect you the other way, if you're sort of dealing with Europe and us.
Well, symbolically, or as a in an analogous way, the U.S. is having its own difficulties with exiting all of its treaties and partnerships and everything.
Yes.
I mean, it's a similar idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? No one knows what it's going to be like. I mean,
Well, for you in particular, because as you were saying, this is a material that's got a certain place in. It's not like art entirely.
Yeah.
So something like that.
I
might
think, I
actually
mean,
have
just
a-
from a practical point of view, actually getting
The
all of the
materials,
materials
yeah.
in is going to start being a real trouble.
Where does it usually? Where do you get your materials?
Well, the colours are from New Zealand or Germany, and the actual raw materials are from Sweden at the minute.
Oh.
So, and then all of our equipment comes from Europe.
Yeah, so you may have some.
I think we will have some problems.
On the ceiling, it doesn't matter. Micro sculptor Willard Wigan creates an artwork so small that you can see the answer. He once inhaled one by accident. No one appreciated his birthday presents. He gets very frustrated. What do you think the answer is? So, micro sculptor Willard Wigan creates artwork so small he once inhaled one by mistake. No one appreciated his birthday presents. He gets very frustrated. Which do you think it
I
is?
think it's all of the above, but I can see the answers.
Yes. Have you seen the answer?
I actually know it was a tiny Alice that he made, I think, if I remember rightly, from Alice in Wonderland.
Is that the case?
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, so the answer is that he once inhaled it.
Inhaled it,
So he
yeah.
actually ate his. I mean,
Michael Barnett.
Yeah.
Okay, a Picasso one, because I'm sure you're riveted by Picasso. Could he draw before he could walk? Picasso, could he draw before he could walk?
We can all draw before we can
No,
walk.
but did he? Because he was a very prickly
Yes.
chap. So as a child, he might have or he might not. He might have got up on the left side or the right side. We just don't know. So what's the answer? What do you think? What do you think?
I think it's a terrible question.
No,
I think every single person in this room was drawing, so the answer is probably yes.
Well,
But to say that he could draw before he could walk is like, draw what? I mean, was he drawing women in fragmented,
Yeah,
you know,
probably
was he
not.
doing his cubism phase? Was he in his blue phase? I mean,
he could have been all of them.
he could have been.
And questions are wonderful because there's never actually a silly question because it's very vast questions and what is, you know, people are all different areas of art and somebody might think it's great, somebody not, and that's just like art. It's subjective. So Picasso could he could. We don't know what he actually did the drawings of, but he could do that. And this is a funny one. The last one I think is a funny one. Question 10 here. English artist Andy Brown created a portrait of the Queen Elizabeth II by stitching together 1,000 used tea bags, 1,000 penny pieces, or 1,000 spiders. And that's English artist Andy Brown created a portrait of Queen Elizabeth II by stitching together tea bags, penny pences, or spiders. That's quite interesting.
It is interesting. I would not say spiders.
Yeah, that's,
I would say
I think it's probably going to be tea bags.
Tea bags.
Yeah.
I agree. Yep.
I think it's,
Does everybody feel tea bags?
Honey?
you'd need a drill though, wouldn't you?
No, it was tea bags. I'll just do this quickly. I have to find the question. But if you show people that, this is sort of caring.
Isn't it, doesn't it face this
Yeah,
way?
yeah.
Yeah,
If-
okay,
if-
it was upside down. See? One. You're gonna get tested on this momentarily.
But it's quite. It's,
Elliot, you should
I-
take a close look.
I should actually. No, it's not ringing any bells.
okay. Well, do you think that was by Monet, Cézanne, or Churchill?
I'll say
Monet,
Churchill.
Cézanne, or Churchill?
I don't know. I'll say Churchill.
What would you say? Monet, Cézanne, or Churchill?
Churchill.
Anybody else? Monet, Cézanne, or Churchill? Have a guess. The gentleman over there, have a guess. Monet, Cézanne, or Churchill?
Cézanne, I would say.
Anybody else for anything? Well, it was Churchill.
I just sensed the
But,
trick question.
Yeah.
I think he was influenced by Cézanne and succession. I mean, do you two know each other or don't know each other?
No.
We met
Never.
earlier.
Right. Well, right. We never met until just today, or just this fair.
We make a very, you know, it's very good that there's sort of different areas of art and how you explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in people who are using, you know, things that are already in the environment. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm cluttering the world up with all these.
No, but it's
New
beauty.
things,
But I
you
was
know.
when I was in college in art classes, I did a lot of ceramic sculpture, and I took glass that I found on the street. Now I'm realizing how I'm still doing exactly what I was doing when I was 3.
Yeah.
But anyway, I took glass on the street and melted it onto
Onto
the
the
ceramic
ceramics,
as
yeah.
part of the glaze with sort of chemicals, and it was really fun. That was. I mean, it made me appreciate how durable glass, or how.
Well, you can
You know.
recycle it
Yeah.
infinite amount
Yeah,
of
yeah.
times and it never
And
really
sand.
changes. Yeah.
Some of the glaze I made was just sand was the only glass component in it. Yeah, it was really fun. But glass makes me nervous because it's so breakable,
It is.
and I break things
Well,
a lot.
wine glasses tend to go.
Oh goodness, we don't have glasses anymore.
Anyway, it was
Thank
lovely
you.
speaking
Thank
to
you very
you.
much.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
You both brightened up my day.
Oh, well, you brightened up our fair,
Thank you.
art fair. Thank you.
Okay.